And I think that we are live. Welcome to the Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse podcast, where we bring, you all know what we bring, hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're here to change the dialogue and the stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. So Nurse Mark is on the road back to Boston. He let us all know this morning on the daily AFA show. He's heading back to Boston to the Green Nurse headquarters on the farm. So Mark, if you're out there listening, I just want to say drive safe. I got this. And really excited to have our guest on here. You know, we often talk about things that people don't want to talk about. However, they are very, very important subjects that need to be discussed to decrease stigma for healing. This year, we've been highlighting and illuminating health professionals who are embracing these revolutionary times and how we are changing how we approach and take care of patients. Today, we're going to hear a compelling story from a teacher who will remind us that even though that we think cannabis is legal, is it really? I'm really, really excited for her to share her story. So Abigail Peck is a teacher, wife, mother, cannabis patient, advocate, and activist. She grew up in Connecticut and was a teacher in Waterbury, Connecticut from 2006 to 2010. Shortly after she gave birth to her son in 2011, she was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And if you don't know, it's a very chronic, debilitating illness. It's a chronic inflammatory bowel disease that causes inflammation in the entire digestive tract. And the forms range from mild to severe. Abby's case was severe. She was not able to work and she moved to Florida. In 2016, she started using medical cannabis to treat her autoimmune condition. Cannabis helped her to heal and she was able to get back to work. And the most awesome thing is that she was able to open her own music studio in 2018. So while back in Connecticut vacationing, she noticed in her hometown, Waterbury, they were hiring for a music teacher. So she applied and was offered the position, and she flew to Connecticut to sign her contract. So when she was applying for the job, she disclosed to Human Resources that she did have a valid Florida medical marijuana card. And then she went for her routine drug test. It came back positive for cannabis only, and she was put immediately on administrative leave until she obtained her medical cannabis card in Connecticut. So Abby went about setting up her residency in Connecticut. She obtained her medical card in Connecticut, and she also obtained a fit for duty from her doctor. So after a month of paid leave and moving her family to Connecticut, she was terminated on the spot. The city cited that she broke their drug and alcohol policy after following procedures and disclosing her medical cannabis use. So this is really horrifying. You know, I'm so sorry, Abby, for the trauma that you had to experience, not only with the traditional system, but also with your employer. You know, this is happening with nurses all around the country and other job professionals, and it truly needs to stop. Abby, welcome to the Green Nurse. I'm very, very excited for you to be here to share your story. It needs to be told. And wow, that's all I have to say is what a story. Would you say, let's start off with this. Would you say that cannabis saved your life?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. My physical life, my emotional life, it altered every part of the discomfort I was feeling, and the anxiety about leaving the house or doing anything. And it healed me tremendously from the inside out.
Right. And so would you, just for our new viewers, because there's a lot of people, you know, we cover a lot of different illnesses, chronic inflammatory bowel disease, but we haven't specifically focused on ulcerative colitis. And so can you just describe to our viewers what it is and how debilitating it can be?
Sure. So it is inflammation throughout the intestinal tract. It's also, because it's an autoimmune disease, it causes inflammation from head to toe. So anywhere between, joint pain, eye inflammation, it can be excruciating. And then of course the frequency in using the bathroom. I mean, that was a huge part. My life had to circle around having a path. So I didn't have an emergency situation. And after the full gamut of medication, I have never had those experiences since starting medical marijuana. I do have my flare-ups with my illness. That's somewhat uncontrollable, but it absolutely changed my life.
Oh, man. So this is interesting. So who introduced you to medical cannabis? Like, have you had a relationship with cannabis before you started to use it medicinally?
So, certainly I experimented with it when I was much younger. I didn't, at that point I got introduced to medical marijuana through Dr. Green Relief, which was down in Florida at the time. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I had my reservations. Is this like a professional organization, or is this, meeting somebody behind a building or something like that?
Right.
So, they were extremely professional. I met a doctor who understood my condition and just how debilitating it can be. And she immediately approved me for my card. And at that time, I was still on a full gamut of medications provided to me. And slowly I began to wean myself off of those and found that for the first time, my body was able to digest things with more comfort. I was able to sleep throughout the night. I was able to move around and as you stated, and then eventually get back to work. The irony here is now maintaining employment,
Right.
because I found a medication that worked for me. And it's a shame. It's a shame that it's happening.
It is. And we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of that because our stories are a little bit parallel, which I find very fascinating. So you were on a lot of different medications as well. So how many were you on, after you?
So, yeah, I consumed a total of 36 pills a day. That was, extremely bad. I would take 4 anti-inflammatories 4 times a day. I was on anti-nausea medication, anti-diarrhea medication. There were some trial medications that were supposed to reduce all sorts of symptoms from my illness. That didn't work. There was narcotic medication in terms of trying to put me out of pain. That also didn't work. It didn't touch the areas that I really needed to feel better with. And it barely allowed me to get by throughout the day. And, I imagined there had to be something better than that, but I just hadn't found it at that time.
Yeah. So I don't know if people can really relate. This is more than just diarrhea. I mean, seriously. So we're talking, because I had a condition, it wasn't diagnosed as ulcerative colitis, but I can just parallel. I just want to tell you what goes through my mind when I think of these things. So, issues with nausea, with vomiting, being hungry and not being able to eat, feeling like your stomach's eating itself, feeling like your body's eating itself, having anxiety around food, having issues with nausea around smells. All of a sudden, your sense of smells like out of whack.
So true. So true.
Right? And
Yes.
then planning. So all of your activities, everywhere that I needed to go, I needed to know where the bathroom was, right? A change of clothes in case you had an accident. I mean, this is major panic attacks, being out and about, not knowing where to go if you have that urgency, and that's the worst thing too, gastrointestinal illness, farting, we all fart, but who wants to have a fart problem? Who wants to have a poop problem? Not me. We were just talking about that. I would rather have had anything else wrong with me than to have something wrong with that system, because it's stigmatizing. I was plagued with even stigma around talking about that. The fear of people knowing, oh my God, she's got problems with diarrhea. And then of course, not being able to keep weight on, so being like, issues with food and even ordering food and going out and being in public. Can you relate to that? Some of those things?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't, but before I was diagnosed, I used to love to, take road trips with my friend, go different places, go to concerts, go out, and I really wasn't able to do any of that at home. Even I had to keep a regimen. I had to schedule everything around it. Even if I had meetings or I was working from home, providing music lessons, I had to schedule everything around my physical health. And you're absolutely right. It's not just using the bathroom. A lot of times for me, it's severe nausea. And even throughout the workday, I often have to excuse myself when it gets too strong because, it's horrific. And, as an educator, my job is to maintain and stay in the classroom. Right. And there were a few years where that was not at all possible for me.
Yeah. And then you had also mentioned too, so besides the gastrointestinal part of it, the autoimmune condition, you would also have pain in different areas of your body. Absolutely. Right? So you have to think about, so this is like multi-system, autoimmune, chronic pain, gastrointestinal, and then you got to think about how does it carry over to our mental, emotional state, right? So true. Depression, anxiety, panic disorder. And I developed, sounds so crazy, but I love talking about it, agoraphobia. Okay. Afraid to leave the house, right? So you can
natural with this condition.
Exactly. So cannabis comes into your life. It helps you to bridge the gap from what you weren't getting from traditional pharmaceuticals. And then you were able to wean off of these pharmaceuticals, correct?
That's exactly right. Right. Predominantly too, I left out before that they used to provide so many different types of steroid medication. Mm-hmm. It destroyed my body. It morphed it into something that I didn't recognize when I was in the mirror. I had my diagnosis was just after I had given birth to my child. And initially, you're right about the stigma of discussing it, because initially I was mortified. I didn't want to go to a doctor even and discuss it. I actually, my son was born with an emergency C-section. So I thought something had gone wrong in the procedure and was causing me all this discomfort and pain. And then they immediately put me on medication and it wasn't helping. So gradually I started to, the steroids were the first to go. And I think they've still had a lasting effect on my body, honestly. But then I got away from the narcotic medication. I mean, taking it and staying at home, one, I didn't feel better, but two, I was a mother with young children. How do I go about providing for them what they need? And also the irony is no one ever questioned what I was taking then in traditional pharmaceuticals. No one ever questioned the amount I was taking. And honestly, with that traditional medication, your body gets used to it and you do necessitate more. And
they didn't have a problem giving us any more now, did they? They didn't have a problem giving me more. Here you go. No. What do you want? What do you want?
You're exactly right.
So they didn't want to see me in the office because they couldn't fix me. They didn't want to hear from me. They didn't want to see me. They didn't want to deal with me. So guess what? They gave me whatever I wanted. Right? That's dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
And then
I had multiple trips to the ER, and it was always about just putting me out of pain. They would inject me with something, and 5 hours, 6 hours later, they would discharge me. This test came back. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing going on, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. And then 2 days later, it would be so debilitating that I would be admitted to the hospital. And you're right with the anxiety and the depression, but how stressful as a young mother too, this ironic situation. I was diagnosed 3 weeks after I gave birth to my child, and
newborn baby.
And it was such a blessing. I felt, and such a curse at the same time. I didn't understand what was happening. Later on in life, I can appreciate that time. Everything happens for a reason, and I've accepted the illness I have. Medical marijuana helps that, because I had a lot of trouble accepting taking all these oral medications and not feeling better. That wasn't an acceptance I had. So if I was going to poison my body, so to speak, with all of this pharmaceuticals, it wasn't worth it to me. And without my child, I really did feel hopeless at the time, because, there's nothing else that I could feel good about, physically, emotionally. It was hard to reach out to friends. I'd make plans with people and then 2 hours later cancel. And it was, I think it became offensive over time. Right. And
your quality of
you
life
know,
was really horrible. Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's the part that's scary too. So you had young children, I had young children. And I know at one point in time, I felt like I was circling the drain of despair. How can I do this another day? I don't know if I want to do this another day. And how scary of a place is that to be when you know you have a lot to live for, but you're not feeling it, right?
That's, yeah, it's terrifying. And, mentally, it's really hard to overcome how physical discomfort can change your life. You really, you have to get real with things. You have to develop an appreciation and acceptance. And this is what I'm going to deal with. This is a chronic condition. Certainly with ulcerative colitis, the small, I guess, advantage as opposed to Crohn's disease is that there can be major surgery. It doesn't necessarily mean that the autoimmune issues will go away.
Right.
They can just remove part of your large intestine and reconnect all of that. And, for many people that's successful, and for many people that is not successful. So
Exactly.
I contemplated that. I met with surgeons. I discussed that. And, I was really willing to do anything at that time to feel better. And it was no question when it came along to medical marijuana. I was willing to try anything. So I was truly shocked. I was truly shocked that it had the effect on me that it did.
Me too.
But I was blessed. I mean, I was so grateful that it did at the same time.
Yeah, me too. It was instantaneous. I had to figure out how to make it work for me, but once I consumed it, it was like my head was cracked open and consciousness poured in. The pain melted away. I really, like, all of a sudden I was like, I wasn't suicidal anymore. I was like, wow, this stuff works.
Right.
And so had it to completely, I was like, wow, completely 100% shifted my perception around everything because I was so focused. When you're vomiting pain, when you're in that much pain, there is nothing else that you think about but that pain. Am I going to move? Am I going to cry? Am I going to scream? Am I going to end up on my knees? Am I going to fall over? Am I going to, that's it. It's just glaring. And then for it to all of go away like that.
That's exactly right. It was so bad. I mean, I would take a pillow and a blanket and I would be in the restroom just because I didn't even have the energy to go back and forth. I didn't have the energy. My bathroom was in the master bedroom and I didn't have the energy to travel back and forth. And then of course, they offer all these solutions that may or may not be the case. So, lots of testing, lots of scoping up and down. And, I had my gallbladder removed because they were certain that was the cause of all of this pain. And once it was removed, it was perfectly healthy. And, I understand, I think, that some of these conditions are still so new that doctors are experimenting with ways that this can help. But anybody who has experienced this type of illness and a variety of gastrointestinal illnesses cannot deny, if they've chosen to act on it and try it, cannot deny the positive effects of medical marijuana. It was life and death at the time. It changed everything for me.
Me too. Mental, emotional, spiritual, how I show up in the world. It's helping me to live my best life, right? And get back to living, instead of just existing, that's what I looked at. I was a big freaking blob of meat in my bedroom, like literally just a corpse sitting there with no quality of life, didn't want to interact with the world, couldn't work, could barely take care of my children, literally, it was hard. I'm like a different person. And I know you are too, because I can just feel it,
am.
And so the part that's so interesting too is here you are a disabled mom with ulcerative colitis, you take cannabis, you get better and you start working again. How awesome is that, right? That's a miracle.
It was incredible. Incredible.
And you're recreating your life, getting involved in music. You started your own business again. And then, maybe I'll go back home to Connecticut, right? You get a job in Connecticut.
Right.
So
I was finally. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was finally ready to work full time. I mean, this is the irony in the whole situation. I was
Exactly.
finally ready to go back. I was excited to go back, having really nothing less to do with the position than just feeling well enough to be able to, like I said, be in a classroom all day, not have these emergency needs to exit. And the irony is that is, and actually being an educator, that is exactly what didn't happen. And my job now, I feel, is to educate on this topic, and to try to bring people out of the woodwork, because, Sherry, you and I know that we're not the only two people who have ever experienced this. And there's so much fear. There's so much fear, even in the community. I'm in a couple groups online of members that deal with this same condition, and there is so much fear about admitting the medication that has saved their lives. It's sad. It really is sad.
Well, can I tell you, and that's the reason why I started the podcast. It was a way for me to get out of the closet, because I knew that this plant saved my life. I knew that it improved the quality of my life. I was starting to help other patients and doing consultations, but I still was a little bit plagued around using it all day, every day in multiple different forms. I needed to get over it real fast. If I was going to, truly be impactful to the patients that I work with, I needed to work through my own stigma. And part of that was coming out of the closet, doing this podcast, sharing my experience, bringing people on to share their experiences, and to show the world that, yes, cannabis is a medicine. When it enters into your body, it acts like a medicine. And it's our intention. How do we want to use it? How do we want to craft our experience? What are we using it for? And, and I think the part that's just so wonderful is that it brought you to a place where you wanted to go back to work. What medication out there makes you want to go back to work?
Right.
I don't know about you.
That's it.
Right.
That's true. And the wonderful part in my experience is that I have the best job in the world. I get to offer my gift, which is music, to students all across, both, young students, and I've had many adult students. And not being able to provide that, not being able to share that gift, it really did. It broke me quite a bit. And that feeling of, wow, I can go back to work, not just wanting to, like, I am physically capable of going back to work. It was devastating when I had to step down, because I am currently still so passionate about teaching. And I use music a lot for healing. And so I would encourage students to gravitate to that same experience, and not being able to do that, it was truly devastating. And the only medication I can assure you that changed that is medical marijuana. I stopped all other oral medications. I mean, that's incredible. Or were they all even necessary to begin with? I don't really know. I took my provider's opinion and medical advice, and I believe they wanted what was best for me. I even mentioned at one point that I had read that medical marijuana could really be beneficial. And my doctors, of course, were like, I don't really think that's the best route. Let's try this and let's try this. And so I took their advice for years. I took their advice. And this has been the life-altering medication that has saved me.
Yes. So I want to get back to the whole job thing, because this is the meat and potatoes. This is where we're all going to get really angry. Okay. So before we get started on that, I just want to say music is extremely healing, vibrational healing, frequencies. I look at music as the language of angels. So it really can truly 100% shift your mood, and anything. It's poetry. It's beautiful. So I love that you're teaching that. It's definitely something that is a missed art in a lot of different schools, and I think it's really important. I'm going to tell you, I have a deaf son. So my son is 15. He's deaf. He wears hearing aids, and he taught himself how to play the piano last summer.
That's wonderful.
Right? So think about how cool that is. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Again, vibrations and feeling and all that. Oh, that's beautiful. I
Yeah.
love
So
that.
I thought, yeah, so it's really cool. So let's get back to the job. So when you applied for the job, so you're in Florida, you get a job in Connecticut as a music teacher, you applied for the job and you disclosed to your employer. So when you applied for the job, did you ever disclose to your employer any of your other medications that you needed to treat your illness?
So
Did
never
you,
ever.
no. And
There was
then
never a
you're,
medication they asked about. There was
okay.
never a
And
medication they tested me for either.
okay, so so how did the conversation of medical cannabis come up? So in other
Right.
words,
So
like when you were like, what was it? Just like, how did it come up in conversation? Was it during the interview, like the signing of the papers? Like, how did that? Just curious.
right. So I had signed, I had gone in and it was when I met with HR. The paperwork in terms of my position had already been established. My contract was signed. What we needed to do is put all the paperwork together in terms of insurance. So I did disclose to the HR representative that I was dealing with that I do possess I have a medical condition in hopes that I could get on the best insurance plan that would fit my situation. And so I disclosed the illness reluctantly, but I did disclose the illness. And she sort of nodded and understood. And then the next process was to go for a drug test. And at that time, I disclosed that I had a medical card
Right.
out of the state of Florida. And again, this was an HR representative. And so she said, well, I think you're going to have to just produce that or present that when you go and have your drug screening. So I went and took the test, and it was the same afternoon. I went there and I showed the individual that was responsible for my screen that I carried this card. And he said, well, you're going to have to present that up front when you check out. So I went up front when I checked out, and, it was very tedious, but I just wanted to make sure that I had crossed my T's and dotted my I's. So I presented it a third time, and they said, okay, like they just completely ill-knowledged about it. So I left and my paperwork was signed. My fit for duty was signed. Everything I thought was in great standings. And I got prepared to go and I was driving right over to introduce myself to the administration. This was 2 days later. And I was halfway there, and central office called me and asked me to report down there immediately. I asked, oh, well, I'm not sure what the problem is, but I'm right on my way to go introduce myself to the administrator there. Can I come afterwards? Absolutely not. They said, don't enter the school. You got to come down right away for a meeting. So I was confused, actually, and a little bit shaken up because it seemed really serious and I wasn't sure, what had come about. So I came down for the meeting, which is when they put me on administrative leave right away, paid leave for 1 month, but that's neither here nor there. And then they took a copy of my medical card. And later that afternoon, the chief medical officer for the district contacted me and said, well, you have a valid card, but it's not out of the state of Connecticut. And I said, well, I'm aware of that because at that time I had only flown up. I was without my family to sign all these papers. So I was not a resident at that time in the state of Connecticut. Therefore, it would have been impossible for me to possess that card. Yeah. And so they gave me, they originally said 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to go and receive my medical card, which again, I had to change my residency. I had to make sure my license was issued properly. I had to find a doctor here to approve the card. And that's exactly what I did. And I actually got it done in a week. I mean, I was overzealous. I was thrilled to be working. I found this, I couldn't get it done fast enough. And I proceeded to call and call and call. And they said, well, we have to speak to our legal team. And I was thinking to myself, like, how could this be? Connecticut had been well advanced in terms of medical marijuana and passing that in the House long before even the state of Florida was. And I really believed that they had further progressed in all of this. It was truly a shock when I got here and found how many people would not disclose their usage, and that I could be terminated. In my wildest dreams, I never imagined that would happen, especially going through the proper procedure. And the termination to cite that I broke a drug and alcohol policy when I was never allowed to actually be present in the school. I mean, it gave one, I was devastated, but what a horrible thing to put, on your record, or to have that be carried. I had never been fired from anything in my life. So, it was a bit of a deflation of ego, and then it floored me. I went through all the stages of grief. Yeah, truly.
I can identify. I
Right.
kept trying to go back to work as a nurse, and I couldn't. I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So the
Exactly
stages
right.
of grief, right? Of not being able to do what you want to do, that you're good at, that you love, and that you're passionate about, right? It's a loss.
That's exactly right. It is. And again, there was nothing preventing them. I had actually worked in the district before. The people who called me that saw that my application had been put in were thrilled. They were other members of the district and administrators that I had worked with before. And in an instant, Sherry, everything just changed. And, now I was without employment. I had moved my family here.
That's going to be my next question. That was my next question.
Yeah,
How has this impacted your professional career, your financial stability, and your family? What happened?
Sure. Well, it devastated my family at the time.
Yeah.
We had a completely different plan. We had signed on a place to live. I had closed my business. I took a chance believing that I was going to make a choice that would positively impact my family and me. And that was exactly the opposite of what happened. It put us in huge financial jeopardy. It really disturbed my ability to get employment again. Connecticut is not a very large state, and it carries with you. It carries all across. And I didn't want to be dishonest and then have them find out that I had my contract revoked. So how good does that feel, walking in and sharing that information? I feel I lost multiple job opportunities from it. And I could be wrong. I knew I lost one. Only that district was silly enough to actually say that this is why they're terminating me.
Right.
But there was multiple job opportunities that I was passed over for after the fact. And I have to believe that this had a lot to do with it.
Wow. So this was 2 years ago. So how about today? How is this currently affecting your life today? What's going on today?
Well, we're still in a legal fight. COVID slowed that down immensely. So we're getting back on our feet again. I have found a new attorney in the last few months, and I can't say enough positive things about him. And so we're gonna go ahead and move forward. The law, I believe, at least in the state of Connecticut, is on our side, and we just have to fight through it. And we have to, it has to, not for popular opinion, but it has to be put out there. I have to tell the story, and like you have to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable to get comfortable. Right?
Yes.
And so I mean it. I mean, this scared the life out of me, interviewing, talking to people, and it still could have a negative impact on me. But the idea of trying to right this wrong, if that even is possible, or at least standing up for what I believed in. I believed in it when I was down in Florida. I believed in it when I healed. I believe in it now. I believed it when Waterbury terminated me. And people said to me too, couldn't you just stop? Couldn't you just stop for a month and pass the test? And yeah, I could have, but I wasn't going to. Who's going to risk that type of pain and that type of agony?
Never.
Right. And
Never,
that
ever, ever,
potentially,
ever, ever.
that's right. That's exactly right. And so could I have? Yeah, I suppose so. But there was no way I was going to do that and risk my health and my and my sanity again.
I mean, why should you have to choose employment over wellness?
That's right.
You
You're
shouldn't.
exactly right. No, you shouldn't. And it's a shame that people get involved in your medical conversation. Again, I have never asked a colleague or an administrator or frankly anybody who what condition they suffer from or further what medication they consume to treat that. And I've also never given any employer a reason to be concerned about impairment or inability to perform in the classroom. So currently I am working. I have a part-time music teaching position, and I enjoy that quite a bit. What happens from here, I can't say for sure. This is 2 years of battling. I can tell you the city has worked really hard to just make me go away.
But you're not going away.
I'm not going away. They have to be held accountable. Yeah,
Yes,
they do. And even if it doesn't change for other people, this is the start of something. And I just hope that people hear the story and just feel more comfortable to disclose their own use. Because we know it's out there, but people are fearful. They're fearful of repercussion. So
fearful of repercussion. Absolutely. And it's a shame, no one's fearful of taking all the pharmaceuticals. What repercussions for those? And I find those to be very more damaging. All of them, even the steroids. Geez, the steroids, what it does to your body. I'm sorry, but it changes your brain chemistry. It decreases mineralization of your bones. People get osteoporosis from taking steroids years later. So all of these different things that no one seems to question or care about. And we have this plant, the most misunderstood, benign, healing plant in the world that knows how to work with our body. Why? Because we make components in our body that are very similar to the plant. We have an endocannabinoid system. We make internal endogenous cannabinoids similar to the plant. It works on our mind, our body, our spirit, all at the same time. Cannabinoids are phytobotanical nutrients that provide energy, homeostasis to all of our 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all of the neurotransmitter messaging signaling systems. Mind, body, spirit, right? Off of pharmaceuticals, one plant to do multiple different things, in your foods. There's so many different ways that you can consume the plant and use the plant. And people always think, oh, it's just about getting high, and it's not. It's not. The last thing that medical patients want to do is to feel worse, right? The last thing we want to do, the goal of using medical cannabis is to use it in a way so you can increase the quality of your life. You can function below the threshold of being impaired and do the things that you want to do, right? Hands down. Yeah, hands down.
That's exactly right. And I feel, there's I don't want to be redundant here, but there's so many people who have benefited from this, and there's so much fear. And again, a lot of people say, well, I don't really care what you do. I don't care what you take. And I want them to care. Not, I want them to care because I had a friend who lost a position and then received another position. She's in insurance, and she went through the full gamut. She had all sorts of medical conditions, and she found great relief using medical marijuana. And she had to go take a drug screening. And long story short, the CEO of the company had recently experienced, his wife had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And at the time they had traveled to Mexico for some experimental medications. And had that experience not happened in his life, she would have been terminated from another position. But because he was aware of all the benefits and at least allowed his wife to live out comfortably her last couple months, it had a profound effect on him. And you don't have to be a consumer to be an advocate. You just have to recognize this is a natural medication, grows right up from the ground. Nothing synthetic about it. By no means is it like a narcotic or an opiate. I mean, it's natural and it's healing.
Natural and it's healing. Yeah. Yeah. So are you ready to take this to the federal level if you have to?
I am. I waited too long, and I was secretive about it for too long. And again, it's scary to try to. I don't suggest I'm the only one pioneering it, but you don't get a whole lot of support right now while it's in the early stages, unless you're of a like-minded. But I don't think it has to be that way. People are nervous, I think,
Good. Let them be nervous because you've got the
Right.
green nurses supporting you.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. But they're nervous to even associate. They're nervous to in any way, like, whoa, that's the one that, and I get it, but it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
It is. And that's why we're here doing what we're doing, decreasing stigma around what it means to feel good and use plant medicine. Seriously. Bottom line, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your story. Your story could save someone's life. Your story is going to have an impact, people that are listening right now. And it takes a lot of bravery and courage to come forth and talk about not only the gastrointestinal nightmare, right? Chronic pain, all the medications, the issues that we've had with employment, and then moving through the stigma of using cannabis. So that takes a lot of bravery and courage. And so I just want to say thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on. And if people wanted to support you, what can people do to support you in your cause? What can we do?
Well, right now, any level of support, I've had a number of people that come out of the woodwork and reach out, again in secrecy, but reach out and show this support. Right now, I mean, if you'd like to reach out and work together and come together and there's strength in numbers, I would love it if you reached out. I have a website, which is abbypeck1980.com. And then my Gmail is the same. It's abbypeck1980@gmail.com. And let's just work together. Let's find a solution. Let's be open-minded. Let's advocate together.
I'm going to put this. So it's www. I'm putting it in the comments.
Sure.
Abby.
ABBYPECK.com,
right?
That's right. 1980. Right. I'm sorry.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I did it wrong.
I'm
sorry, guys. That's all right. It's all my fault. Let's see. www.abbypeck1980. All right. 1980. Okay. I got it. All right. So you guys reach out to her. Let's continue the dialogue. Let's continue to bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. Let's continue to support people that are using cannabis as medicine and that are here to change the laws, right? We all deserve to feel good. And we all should have the right, the freedom to choose what we want to choose as medicine. So anyways, we are here to support you, Abby. And what we're going to do is I want you to check in with me every now and then, because if there's something good and juicy to report, we're going to have you right back on.
I'd love to. Sherry, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I know all you do to advocate, and again, the bravery you had to come out and to start this. I think it's an incredible cause, and I know you're going to affect a lot of people in a positive way. So I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I bow to the light in you. And thank you all for watching tonight, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m., Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse podcast. And make sure you join us tomorrow morning for your daily dose of AFA at 8 a.m. And thank you all for joining us, seriously. And remember what it's all about. It's about living your best life and helping others do the same. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, now I got to find the button. Where's the button to end the broadcast? Smile. Got it. Good. Usually Nurse Mark does this.